The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Saskatchewan Pulse Growers and Nodulator XL.
Okay, joining us here on Real Agriculture, we have Chuck Penner of Left Field Commodity Research, and Chuck talking about the lentil market, focusing on what's happening with lentils. Right now, the story, as with the overall pulse markets, revolves around India in many ways, what we're seeing happen with lentil prices.
Yeah, it's kind of a really good news kind of picture, if you want to call it that. I mean, record high prices, who wouldn't be happy with that? And so we're seeing strong demand from India. That's particularly the case for the red lentils. And so right now bids are, in Western Canada are up around the 50-cent a pound mark, which is, I think we've had a little bit higher, but that was way back when nobody had any to sell. So now farmers are able to participate in that and get some sold at these extremely high levels. India has had poor crops now for a poor winter crop, the last one, and then they also have had a couple of poor summer crops, which aren't lentils, but they kind of depress the whole supply of pulses in that country. So, all of those pulse markets kind of get lifted by that. So there's real concern about that. And so it's been very, very positive from that perspective. And the concern now is what's happening with their next pulse crop. So that's being planted right now. And there's what we can tell already is that acreage is lower than last year, which was already a low year. And so it's well behind average, and that planting window kind of closes toward the end of December. So they're getting close to the end of that, and they've had very poor rains. That's what's been driving the lower acres. That also gives some kind of poor yield prospects. If you've had dry conditions, they don't tend to irrigate their pulses very much. So there's already concern for next year's crop. So we have record high prices for red lentils, or close to record high red lentil prices. It needs to be remembered though too that the Canadian dollar has had a large impact. So probably 10 to 15 cents per pound is strictly related to the Canadian dollar. If we were on par with the US dollar, they would be lower by that volume, or by that amount. And so, it would still be great, but not quite as great.
So at these levels, is there concern that demand will be reduced, or that there's substitutes or competition from other protein sources?
Well, the nice thing about lentils is it's difficult to find other substitutes, as you say. So, we might see a little bit of demand kind of tap out in India. But what we're also seeing is prices in Turkey are continuing to rise along with prices here. And so certain countries have more capacity to keep paying. So I think Turkey is one of those. The issue is that there's very little downside expected. When the Indian crop comes off, prices could dip a little bit. But, there's not going to be huge supplies hitting the market until next year's crop here in Western Canada. And so, even if that market kind of levels off, it's the kind of a situation where it's not likely going to, drop. Sometimes you see these price spikes, they go up and then they come back down really hard. It's not likely to drop very hard. The one exception, though, is that for new crop prices, which are also at record levels for new crop pricing, which again has been a very great opportunity for farmers to get crops sold, but that kind of a situation, we're already starting to see those soften a little bit. New crop prices have really gone up sharply. Now they're starting to come off a little bit, and basically what's happening there is that buyers are seeing that they've got enough coverage for next year's supply, at least for the short term, and so they're not willing to keep going on that market. So they've got a bunch bought, and then they can kind of just back away a little bit from the market.
So what does that mean for acres in Western Canada next year?
They're going to be big. I mean, there's no question we're going to have acres over 4 million, and the only question is how much over 4 million. So we're going to have record acreage, and it's then that raises the question: are we going to oversupply the market? And it's not just going to be Canadian farmers. For red lentil side, anyway, it will be Australia, will be the other bigger producer. There aren't a whole lot of countries that produce red lentils, though, for the export market. For green lentils, the U.S. will be increasing their acres, maybe Argentina, but again in Western Canada. So yeah, we're gonna see a large supply, and farmers will say, well, what if they go higher? What if prices go? That's always the question, right? What if prices go higher? And so I would ask the question back: are they not high enough? Even if they do go higher, if you sell at these price levels, they're extremely profitable. So
especially relative to other crops.
Especially relative to other crops. And the bonus for farmers is that most of these new crop contracts have these act of God clauses. So if for some reason they can't produce the crop, they're not on the hook for trying to fulfill the market.
All right. Thank you, Chuck.
Yep. Thank you.